France and Germany, two major NATO powers, have said that Ukraine should be allowed to hit military sites inside Russia. But only those Russian sites can be targeted by Ukraine from which missiles are being fired at Ukrainian territory and not other targets. French President Emmanuel Macron further clarified he is not escalating by extending his support to Ukraine, since it is Russia that is organizing itself in this way.
So we're staying exactly within the same framework. We think that we should allow them to neutralize the military sites from which the missiles are fired, and basically the military sites from which Ukraine is attacked. But we must not allow them to hit other targets in Russia, obviously civilian capabilities or other military targets.
Civiles ou d'autres cibles militaires.
Interestingly, 2 days after speaking out against Ukraine using weapons provided by Western allies to strike Russia, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz also backed Macron. During a joint news conference in Germany, he said as long as Ukraine respected the conditions laid out by countries that supplied the weapons, it was allowed to defend itself. Though Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned the West that NATO members in Europe are playing with fire by proposing to let Ukraine use Western-supplied weapons to strike inside Russia.
Representatives of NATO countries, especially in Europe, especially in the small countries, they should be aware of what they are playing with. They should remember that as countries with small, densely populated territories. And this is a factor that they should keep in mind before talking about striking Russian territory.
Speaking during a state visit to Uzbekistan, Putin directly accused the US of wanting a global conflict. He said the ground offensive being carried out by Moscow's forces in Ukraine's northeastern Kharkiv region is the result of Ukrainian strikes on Russian territory.
Everything now revolves around the events on the approaches to Kharkiv. So it was them who provoked these events in this direction. 6 months ago, I publicly said, if they continue to strike residential areas and neighborhoods, we will be forced to create security zones. And just recently, I said so. We moved on to this.
Meanwhile, the White House once again rejected Ukrainian president's request for an end to restrictions using US-supplied arms to strike Russian territory.
There's no change to our policy at this point. We don't encourage or enable the use of US-supplied weapons to strike inside Russia.
Furthermore, Volodymyr Zelensky has urged US President Joe Biden to attend a peace summit due to be held in Switzerland in mid-June. He said Ukraine's key allies' absence would only be applauded by Russian President Vladimir Putin.
I think the peace summit needs President Biden, and other people who are looking at the response of the United States of America need him. If he is not present, it will be just like applauding Putin. Personally applauding and doing so standing.
In the latest, Russian guided bombs killed 2 civilians in the eastern Ukrainian city of Donetsk on Tuesday and heavily damaged 2 multi-story apartment buildings. For more on this, we were earlier joined by John Irith, who is the policy director of the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation. He joined in from Washington, D.C. Here are his thoughts on the matter.
This is very standard rhetoric from the Russian side. It's been very consistent for the last 2 years that every time there is additional assistance being sent to Ukraine from Western countries, Putin or sometimes Medvedev will say something like this. It's part of a consistent strategy to raise the perception of a threat of a wider conflict, and to get the Western countries to self-impose limitations on the assistance that they provide Ukraine. All-out war that is underway. It's the war that Russia is waging on Ukraine. What Russia is asking here is for Ukraine to restrain itself from attacking targets in Russia while Russia is unrestrained in the targets it can attack in Ukraine. That's not the recipe for a winnable war for Ukraine, and that's what Russia wants.